Hello everyone, welcome back to Rolling Solo. My name is Adam Smith. I'm excited today to be moving into the Lord of the Rings Journeys in Middle-earth solo setup. That's right, we're going to be playing this single player, and if you haven't checked out the unboxing, which has already been released on the channel, it'll give you a really good feel of what to expect inside the box, as this is a product that implements not only an app that you're seeing on screen as the engine of the game itself, but also meshes itself in with the board game that'll be sitting on your table. This is going to be the engine that's going to drive a whole bunch of randomization within the app that's going to make sure the campaign you play is randomized and changes every single time you play it, allowing you to have multiple different experiences even within the same campaign, which is really cool. On the screen here, you're seeing a number of different options from the app, which will be available across a number of different devices when it finally lands. This is a pre-final build, but is, as you can see on screen, in version 1.0. and just a little bit past that. So this is as close to a final build without it being final as it's going to get. You can see here we got new game, load game, collection, rules, and quit. And obviously we're going to move straight into a new game, as that is the very first step of the setup. And in these first few sections here of this app, it's going to cover sections or steps 1 and 2. And then we're going to go ahead and step number 3 and gather our starting items. So let's go ahead through this app as it works our way towards loading up our characters for our adventure. So we're going to start with a new game. So once you select the new game, a campaign will appear, and again in the future more campaigns will be added. In this particular build we have the one campaign. This may in actuality be the only campaign in the core game, but again remember, the app is going to randomize this particular campaign, so your experience with it again and again is going to be different, which I'm really intrigued about. There might be more campaigns than just this one, but I do believe it could just be the one to start. So we're going to be jumping into this one as it's the only option in the app currently. It says ancient kingdoms once spanned the realm of Arnor, kingdoms that now lay in ruin. The free people who still inhabit these lands are scattered, simple and few. Beyond their poorly patrolled borders, an unknown darkness gathers, and only a small band of ostracized rangers has taken notice of the threat. Hellebarde, captain of the Northern Watch, requests your aid. A shadow is within the borders. Forces gather outside the Rangers' reach, and tales of unquieted dead begin to circulate anew. So we're going to go ahead now and move into selecting our difficulty for the campaign. So as you can see on screen here, we have two major options. One is normal and one is hard. Normal's on the left, hard's on the right. Kind of depicted by the characters also representing them as well. You can see here if we click on the left-hand side, we select the normal difficulty and we can journey as a fellowship facing the challenges of Middle-earth at a normal pace. If we choose the right-hand side, we have the hard side, and this is going to present deadly challenges and enemies that are going to be waiting over every hill. So obviously quite a jump there. So for the purposes of this video and for the playthrough, we're definitely going to jump back to the normal difficulty. I'm going to really look forward to jumping into this later on to try it at the hard difficulty. And now we're going to move towards the selection of this save slot. So 5 slots are going to open up for you, and you're going to be able to select any one of them, meaning that you can have multiple campaigns saved across these 5 different entries, which is really great to know. You can have multiple campaigns going in parallel. So we'll go ahead and take the top slot for now and then move to selecting our heroes. Next up, we have the selection of heroes, and as we saw in the unboxing video that I did, there is 6 major heroes, which are all on screen right here. Now, the rulebook itself states that if you're playing single player, that you do need to select at least 2 characters when playing single player, but there is nothing stopping you from selecting more once you become comfortable with those 2, and you're able to handle 3, 4, or 5 if you really so choose to control that many. Again, you're completely free and able to do that. You'll also notice at the bottom right hand corner of this app right now, it says select starting items, and it's completely grayed out because you do need to select your heroes up to 2 at least, and then you can continue forward. So who are we going to choose? Well, I'm going to actually choose the 2 characters on the far ends because I'm a big fan of Aragorn and I'm a big fan of Legolas. So we're going to take both of those, and to be totally honest, it's quite a tough decision across all of them. But those are the 2 I'm going to go through with this particular journey. And as you can see, as soon as I selected Legolas, it then activated the select starting items button, which will now press to gather our items. The app will then present you with all the items that these 2 characters you've chosen or other characters you've chosen are supposed to start in their loadout. So you're going to have armor, hand items, and in some cases even banners or other specialized cards. This is going to reference also a numerical value here, or Roman numeral of 1, saying that you're only going to be taking these particular items at level 1, making it easier to find them through the decks. So at this point in time, we'll jump out of the app. So I've gone ahead and got the hero cards for Aragorn and for Legolas, and both of them are in play, as well as the miniatures for both. And just underneath of them, I've got the first cards for each of the characters that the app specified, the armor cards. And the armor for Aragorn was the travel garb. The armor for Legolas was a cloak. As long as the Roman numeral is a 1 in both of the corners of the card there, just next to the title, then you know you've gotten the correct armor cards from this armor deck. You'll tell that it's the armor deck because there is a suit of armor on the back of the deck. The next card that's going to be part of the loadout for our 2 characters is going to be the hand items coming from the hand deck, and there's a hand even on the deck itself, again making it super simple to find exactly where these cards are situated. And Aragorn is going to start with a sword, whereas Legolas is going to start with the great bow. Again, thematically speaking, makes perfect sense and even matches their miniature. Then we're going to move on to a banner card. Now, a banner card is something that Aragorn gets based on the app, but Legolas doesn't. We'll talk more about what that means and what it is later on, because this is just the setup. But let's go ahead and grab that banner card and equip it to Aragorn. So the banner card that Aragorn receives is also from this particular hand item deck as well. So just be aware of that. And again, same thing, Roman numeral set to 1. We have now gone ahead and accumulated all of the items. We're going to head back to the app in order to select the party name. So now that Aragorn and Legolas have all accumulated their starting items, we're going to go ahead and select a party name, and I already have a name chosen for this group. This group name is going to be called Whisper. And just like that, we're going to go and select Begin.
The shadows grow, though few take notice. The vigilant, the wary, and the old. We can feel it, but it is a darkness that rises slowly. It dwells among us, masked and unobtrusive. One must be paranoid to know it's there, to notice, hunt it, and root it out. In recent months, a rash of thefts have swept through Eriador. From the white towers of Emin-Beriad to the old ruins of Weathertop. Not 2 weeks past, many of the older treasures of the Shire's Matham House disappeared into the night. The significance of these thefts may seem small, but I sense the shadows in their wake. I fear a sinister and hidden purpose, and so I have called for your aid.
The next step of the setup is to create the damage, fear, and weakness decks. You can see them in this shot left to right. You also can find them by looking at the emblems near the bottom of the cards or flipping these particular decks over, and that same emblem will be on the back of the card as well. You'll also note that on the far right hand side is the weakness keyword. That's very, very important for building out the weakness deck, as the back of the weakness cards has a back that's very similar to a number of other cards that are also separate and not part of the weakness deck. So make sure that you go through this large amount of cards with this back and find only the cards that have the keyword weakness in order to create that weakness deck. You're then going to shuffle these 3 decks together and put them within easy reach. And this step is now complete with the damage deck, fear deck, and weaknesses shuffled and face down on the game table. The next step of the setup is going to be creating the supply. You're going to separate a number of different tokens into different areas, all within easy reach. I'm going to start building these out to the right of my damage, fear, and weakness decks. So you're going to see some inspiration tokens. We're going to find some exploration tokens. We're also going to see some search tokens, as well as some threat tokens and person tokens. Next, you're going to want to find your boon cards, and you're going to want to separate them into the 3 appropriate stacks: determined, hidden, and emboldened. Finally, you're going to want to find all your enemy banner tokens and attach them to the plastic bases that come in the game box, and just set them again within easy reach. Next, you're going to want to return all the battle map tiles and terrain tokens to the box. So everything you're seeing in this shot right now will be returned to the box, as they're not used in the first adventure. The next important step is choosing your role for the characters that you've brought into your journey in Middle-earth. And you can see here that there are some designated roles that are already associated with the 6 starting characters, if you'd like to follow that. And for the purposes of this playthrough, I'm going to stick to the ones that are associated to the characters. So Aragorn is going to take the role of captain, and Legolas is going to take the role of hunter. Now there's some interesting things here in terms of roles, because you don't have to go ahead and use the roles associated as mentioned in this rulebook. You can choose any role for your particular hero. And the rulebook does detail out these roles in a separate section to the right of what we just saw, stating that a burglar is going to be able to evade enemies and is self-sufficient. A captain helps the party prepare for any situation. A guardian protects others and has strong defenses. A hunter attacks for heavy damage. A musician inspires others to succeed at their tasks. Pathfinder helps the party move quickly. The coolest part of this is that role selection is not permanent. Heroes can change the roles between adventures, and I find this really interesting, because typically when you select a loadout for your character or a role or something that they specialize in, you're usually stuck with that. So the ability to change that out as you go along leads to a lot of synergies you could use between the different roles to help you. The next important step of the setup is to gather your skill cards. So there's a few steps to this process. The first thing is you're doing this for each of the characters you're bringing into your journey, and you're grabbing and gathering the following 15 skill cards. First off, you're taking 1 copy of each skill card numbered 1 through 6 that has the word basic on the bottom, so the keyword basic. And as you can see at the very bottom of all of these cards in front of you, basic 1 through 6, these are all standard cards that every starting hero will get, and they come from a deck that also has the ring as an icon on the back of the deck. The next portion of gathering the skill cards is to find the skill cards numbered 1 through 5 that have the name of the hero on the bottom of the card. So very straightforward. If you're looking for Aragorn, you're literally looking for the keyword Aragorn 1 through 5, which I've done on these 5 cards right at the bottom. Again, they come from a deck with a similar ring icon on the back. Next, find the skill cards numbered 1 through 3 right here in the middle that actually pertain to the role that you've chosen for your particular character. So Aragorn is by default a captain as a role. I decided to stick with that and not choose a different role for him. So I take captain cards 1, 2, and 3. And the easy way to find these in the deck of cards, which again has a ring on the back, because there is a lot of them, is to look for the titles that are in green. The deck will be much smaller, and they will be specific to all the different roles you can be of the 6 in the core game. game. Of course, you have a lot more advanced specializations and abilities that'll come in to play later on, but when you're starting out your character, you don't get access to those right away. You can see here, for example, this one says Pathfinder 4, so you wouldn't be able to take that from the get-go. The final step to conclude gathering your skill cards for your particular hero is to draw one weakness card from the top of the weakness deck that we actually created earlier on. So I'm going to draw that card right now, and we'll find out what Aragorn's weakness is going to be. He is going to be watched. Well, that's not good. Definitely don't want the eyes staring at us, but that's going to be a problem later on, I'm sure. And now what we're going to do in order to speed things up is, instead of showing you Legolas's build out of cards, we're going to assemble that deck using the same steps you've already seen here, and you will see those cards as we move into the playthrough, but I'll skip through building that in front of you. However, I will show you the weakness that's going to be added into his deck, because I think that's kind of interesting. So let's see what weakness that Legolas receives. He gets misled. So this will not be going into Aragorn's pile of cards. Instead, this will end up in Legolas's skill cards. The next setup step is about preparing your roll card and creating your skill deck. But we've already assembled the skill deck, so now we're just going to create it. What you do is you find the role that you've chosen or have by default selected. In this case, for Aragorn, it's Captain. Find that numerical 1 value card for Captain. In this case, this is going to be the first card that's going to be face up underneath your hero board or hero card, and the rest of the cards in this area are going to be shuffled together. So here's an example of how Aragorn's area for his hero would look once the skill cards and the prepared roll card have been added in with the items that he accumulated from the app that was talked about earlier in the video. So now we have a prepared roll card, and that's very important to note. Prepared is a keyword in the game. We'll talk more about that later, but you'll know which roll card to grab by two different ways. One, as I mentioned, it'll have a numerical 1 next to the role that you've chosen or the role you've defaulted to, which I did by choosing the Captain role for Aragorn, which is the normal role for him. But if I had chosen Pathfinder, I'd still be taking Pathfinder 1. Also, another way to note which one is the starting prepared roll card is there is stars around the particular title of the card that will also make it easy to identify it as well. Then the rest of the skill cards that you saw in the last clip are shuffled together into a deck and then placed around the hero card anywhere you really see fit. It does state in the rulebook that the prepared roll card should be placed under the hero card. It is now time for us to embark on our adventure. So we're brought to a map of Middle-earth, a shadow in Eriador, chapter number 1, and there's also going to be multiple locations that will unveil themselves as we play through the campaign, but for right now, there's only one option to choose from, so we're going to go ahead and click Continue. Now we have some flavor text to read, and then we're going to move into the playthrough. The theft of the Matham house is the talk of the Shire, for seldom do the Shire folk play a role in the larger world, and so these events seem small as a hobbit. But one small fellowship has gathered together to seek out those brigands. So at this particular time, the app is asking us to pick the roles. Now, we could have chosen the roles at this juncture during the app, or we could have done it earlier using the cards as I showed in this video. We've already chosen our roles and we've already talked about them, so we can simply select the ones that line up for the two characters we've already chosen. In this case, we know for Aragorn, it's going to be Captain, and for Legolas, it's going to be Hunter. And now we will embark on our quest. So as you can see here, we're brought to kind of a menu screen here, but it's really the world with a fog of war kind of approach. says somewhere amid this maze of dark thickets and steep gullies, the band of thieves now hides. Your direction is informed by a set of tracks from 2 days ago, and you can only guess the location of the thieves' lair. Now we're going to place tile 302A as indicated. Tile 302A is now in position. Let's continue onwards. If you cannot locate and enter the hideout by dark, the trial may be altogether lost. Place heroes as indicated, and each hero scouts 2. So as the app instructed, I placed Aragorn and Legolas in the central tile of 302A. And we've got those miniatures in place, so now we're going to do what the app called a Scout 2. And what happens with that is you take the skill decks that we created earlier on for both of our characters, which are all shuffled together. We're going to reveal the top 2 cards of each of the decks, and our characters, each of them, will be able to choose one of the 2 cards to prepare and place under their hero card, very much like what we did with the role specific card, the role 1 card. So in Aragorn's particular case, it was Captain 1, and in Legolas's case, it was Hunter 1. But we're going to be able to prepare another card. And then the other card that we choose not to prepare is able to go back on the top of the skill deck or be shuffled down to the bottom. And I shouldn't say the word shuffled, it's actually placed at the bottom. So now we're going to go ahead and we're going to reveal 2 cards from both decks. Aragorn's on the left, Legolas is on the right. Let's see what we get. First card is Unyielding Spirit. It says when you test Spirit, you may discard this skill to add 1 success. The second card, oh wow. Okay, so the second card was the weakness card that we know there's a weakness for both of our characters. Aragorn's came up right away. This actually works out perfect because I'll be able to actually put this one at the bottom of the deck for sure. So we kind of makes Aragorn's situation a bit easier to handle. So we'll be definitely preparing the Unyielding Spirit and taking the Watched Weakness and placing this one at the bottom of the skill deck. And then we can return that skill deck over to Aragorn's hero card. This is going to be placed underneath Aragorn's hero card and is considered prepared. Now we're going to move over to Legolas. So Legolas is going to now reveal 2 cards from his deck. The first one we have here is Light-Footed. When you interact with a search or threat token before you test, you may discard this skill to test your agility instead and scout 1. So similar to what we're doing right now with the scouting skill. And then we have Sprint 1 on the bottom, which says during your turn, discard to move 1 space. So makes him a little quicker. He's light-footed. It thematically makes sense. And again, this is one of Legolas's particular cards specific to him, of course. Second card off the top of the deck is Precise Strike. This is a tactic card and it has a strike 3, so when you attack, you discard it to add 3 hits. Oh man, both of those are actually really, really good. And what's also important to note, in the very top hand corner of both of these cards is an emblem which basically represents, or an icon that represents successes. And this is how successes are going to be found throughout the journey. There's no dice in the game. You'll be flipping cards from your skill deck and checking to see how many successes you get. So successes are really good. So we're going to want to do something different with Legolas. We're going to want to go ahead and pick one of these to prepare and one of them to sit on top of the deck because it'll guarantee us a success on the first thing that we do. So I've come to a decision on what I'm going to do with Legolas, and it's going to be to take Precise Strike and prepare this card. I really like the idea that I can do some decent damage with one of the characters for sure. So we're going to take Precise Strike and put that in the prepared underneath the hero card area. And then the Light-Footed card, I have a choice to put this on top or bottom of the skill deck. I'll choose to put it on top. This will guarantee us a known success at the top of the skill deck going forward. Now, honestly, between the 2 cards, they both could have been argued as being great for future rounds, but I'm going to choose the damage in this case, and we're going to move on forward with the app. So this has all been resolved. We've gone ahead, we've placed our miniatures, we've scouted, and now we're going to go ahead and continue. A dense fog blankets the area covering an already treacherous land. Place a threat token as indicated. So as indicated by the app, we're going to place 1 threat token in this location right here. And we'll continue from here after placing the threat token. A faint buzzing sound alerts you to something amiss in the area. Place a search token as indicated. As indicated by the app, we'll place a search token right here. The search token has now been placed and we can continue. Place tile 100A as indicated. Tile 100A is now in position. With that tile in place, we'll now continue. In the distance, a group of ragtag individuals close the doors of a stone tomb. Could this be your quarry, the thieves you are looking for? Place a person token as indicated. The person token will be placed right here. And we'll continue. Place tile 301A as indicated. Tile 301A is now in position. And we'll continue onwards. Next, we're going to place an exploration token on tile 301A. An exploration token is now placed on tile 301A. And we'll continue on. Pausing to tighten your boots and adjust the weight of your gear, you take a breath before continuing on. Each hero tests his spirit for 1, and each hero who passes gains 1 inspiration. So now each of our hero is going to test their spirit for 1, and every hero that does pass this test is going to gain an inspiration token. And those inspiration tokens can be kept on the hero card and used in order to convert fate, which can potentially come up on skill cards in the top right hand corner, which we'll talk about when we see one in a second, in order to convert it to a success. So what we're going to do now is we're going to go ahead and test our spirit, looking for 1 success. So my spirit on Aragorn, in terms of how many cards I can reveal, is right there next to spirit, which says 2. So I can reveal 2 cards, and hopefully one of them is going to be a success. So we'll go ahead and reveal the first one. So we can see right here, these are the fate emblems, and essentially in order for them to ever be considered a success, which these are not right now, I would have to spend those inspiration tokens that I'm trying to actually gain right now. So this technically is already not looking so good for me. We go to the next card in the pile, and there is a success. And that's all I needed in order to pass this particular test, which then is going to grant me 1 inspiration token for Aragorn. Now I'm going to place the inspiration token that Aragorn just gained in this slot right here on the hero card. Any cards used during the skill test are now discarded. Now we're going to pull for Legolas's test with Spirit, and Legolas is also a 2 on his hero card for Spirit, so we'll be pulling 2 cards to see if we get a success. But guess what, guys? We already know we're going to, because we put a card back on top that was a success. So we know we've got it already. And then we'll go ahead and we have to reveal the next one, and we got 2 successes. Now you might be wondering what happens in the case when you pull a success on the very first card. Do you have to pull another card when you've already got the success off the first one? And the answer is yes. You still have to actually pull the number of cards equal to how much you actually have in that particular skill. So in this case, I have 2 for Spirit. I have to pull 2 cards for Spirit regardless. Now there are going to be tests in the game that don't require just 1 success. There will be some similar to Mansions of Madness, where you'll be making an attempt and you'll need multiple successes, of which you may have to program into the app to specify how many successes you got and go after it multiple times before you finally crack it. So in this particular case, we only needed 1, but we got 2, but I still have to go ahead and discard both these cards. The great news is we get the inspiration token for Legolas, and we also got it for Aragorn. So the inspiration token gained will go in Legolas's hero card right here. Each hero in the game has a different level or number of inspiration tokens that can be acquired by the said character, and it's indicated right below where we've slotted in the inspiration token we gained, which is 5. So at max, Legolas can have 5, whereas we saw Aragorn earlier with 4. With the spirit test passed for both of our heroes, with both of them gaining inspiration, that worked out fantastic. We're now going to continue on in the app. So our objective has now been updated. It says to confront the thieves, and now we're going to go ahead and continue to see what happens. We begin in the action phase. And that is going to conclude the solo setup for The Lord of the Rings Journeys in Middle-earth. Join me again very soon as we move into a playthrough of the scenario that we've just set up. I can't wait, and I hope to see you there. As always, keep on rolling solo.